All right. Happy Saturday, everybody. We'll give folks a few minutes to hop in, and I just want to welcome you to this week's installment of In Flint. I am Melissa Mays, and I run What Are You Fighting For? And I am also founder of What Are You Fighting For since January of 2015, operations manager at Flint Rising here in Flint. And I'm also a social worker in mental health here in Flint, and and a metalhead. So that's a little bit about me. And we have a lot to talk about today. A lot of big updates, things that happen. As we know, the world changes quick and things pop in, pop up. But there's always something that we, as just regular folk, normies, however you want to call it, can do. There are always things that we can do. So I just want to say good morning to everybody. It's outside's a fall day for Michigan, a little cloudy. It's fine. But we're here, which is great news, right? We all made it to Saturday, and we're going to talk about goings on in Flint and a lot of state talk this week, and things that you can do and ways that you can reach out and help your neighbor. And that's near and dear to my heart. It is in there. It's there. I find very, very important, because one of the hey Chris. Hi. One of the big things that make me one of the things that gets me up in the morning, besides heavy music, loud music, to-do lists, is how amazing the community is, and how we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for one another standing together, fighting together, pushing back, even in the most insurmountable seeming of situations. So we in Flint, we are no strangers to fighting back and for standing up for ourselves and one another. So I just want to thank you all for doing that. Especially when people reach out, on social media or to you directly, and say that there's a need that they need to have addressed, and just seeing everybody reach out with resources and information and help. It reminds me that, hey, maybe the world isn't in such a terrible spot, hopefully, as it is. And that's thanks to y'all. So anyway, happy Saturday. We're going to talk about some normal stuff. Basically, we're going to go over what we usually talk about, which, we'll start with my thing, which is today is day number 3,473 in the ongoing Flint water crisis. So yeah, we are past the 9.5-year mark. And oh my goodness, right? Like, we're going to be hitting double digits, but we can't let that get us down, because, we've been here, we've been fighting, and we're not going away. So that's one thing for, oh, hi. Good morning, Dr. Weaver. It's always an honor to have Dr. Weaver in the chat with us, and especially if there are questions, because a lot of folks, because it has gone on so long, because it has been 9.5 years and counting, the details can sometimes get a little fuzzy, because so many things have happened. So many people have come in and gone, and some folks like to change the history, the narrative, and say, oh no, this didn't happen. So that's why we're lucky to have our former Mayor Karen Weaver, Dr. Weaver, here in the chat, so she can answer stuff. And we've been actually talking about what we can do to remind folks, like, how we got here and who did what and who's responsible, because obviously we have an attorney general who isn't, whose office is not focused on getting justice for Flint, as nobody's sitting behind bars for the poisoning of 100,000, give or take, people, and the deaths of countless folks. So once again, another infuriating marker, but we're not letting it drop. And there are people that are really working hard to find options for us, because sometimes the folks that we elect do amazing things, like stand with us and stand up against, corruption and the, oppression of people. And then sometimes people get elected in office and they do exactly the opposite of that. So I'm trying to stay cheery. Y'all know how difficult that can be for me sometimes. Anyhow, so this week we've been fighting as a question, and I know that a lot of folks do know the answer. When you hear about water shutoffs or lack of access to clean, running, safe water and sanitation, meaning being able to flush the toilet, being able to wash your hands, being able to do your laundry, things like that, a lot of folks think of third world countries, and they don't think about their neighbors and right next door. And in Michigan, we have these barbaric practices of saying, hey, I understand you can't pay your bills, so let's go ahead and cut off your water, because as if you weren't going through enough. And let's go ahead and increase the hepatitis A outbreak, which Southeastern Michigan has had this historic ongoing battle with hepatitis A, which can be spread by not being able to wash your hands or, have access to clean sanitation and hygiene, and not by choice. But the same thing with COVID-19. They said, okay, wash your hands, don't transmit germs, that kind of thing. Kind of hard to do when you turn on the tap and there's nothing there. And so a lot of folks don't realize that, yeah, it's happening here in 2023, going on 2024 in America, and if you got your, your flags out there and all that stuff, and you're proud of what we're doing as a country, maybe we might want to take a pause and say, perhaps we shouldn't be taking even more services away from those who are living in poverty. But when you also live in Flint and you pay some of the highest rates in the United States, 8 times the national average, it's real easy to get behind on your water bills. When I tell people, yeah, like our water bill, we have to, to keep things going. Sometimes we got to pay over $200 a month, sometimes $250, sometimes more. And sometimes when you get a shutoff notice for $550 or for not being able to pay for 2 months or things like that, kind of hard to find that money. I don't know if anybody realizes that we've had some economy issues going on, right? And last time I looked, it's not been raining money. It's, that's not quite what's happening. My jokes and my sarcasm and my trying to keep a, like a decent, cheery tone on this lovely Saturday morning, it's a little difficult because I used to, and I still want to in my life, get music, bands sending me links, people updating me on shows, because pre-water crisis, my life was medals in the music as opposed to medals in the water, and supporting local music and touring bands and everything, putting on concerts at Machine Shop and venues all in the region and across the United States. I was tour manager. Now I get messages and stories from people all over the country about their water hurting them, rashes, nobody's listening to them. But this past Thursday, I was asked to testify at a hearing. The People's Water Board, out of Detroit, it's a coalition of water allies, right? So Flint Rising, What Are You Fighting For? We the People of Detroit, Michigan Welfare Rights Organization, and just countless, groups in Michigan, getting together and working for, clean, safe, affordable water. Pretty simple, right? Well, in 2015, we were able to, in the State House and Senate, we were able to introduce the Water as a Human Right bill package. I mean, it doesn't seem to, it shouldn't be political, right? Like, because everybody uses water. Yep. I mean, I hope that you're able to bathe and flush the toilet. If you live in my house and you're one of my sons, you don't always be flushing that toilet. So I get to run into some surprises, but aside from that, like, everybody uses water. You go to a restaurant, you go to, a fire is being put out, that kind of stuff, right? So we were fighting for this bill package, which includes bills that, and actually, I'm going to go ahead and share it since I'm all fancy now, and I can do that. But this here is the it's bill summary, right? So. And it's sponsored by Senator Stephanie Chang, who has been an fierce advocate since day one. And, we have, the affordability program, and basically they want to make it based on no one's paying more than 2 or 3% of their household income to their water bill. Right now, the average, I think it's 10 to 15% as the state average. And in many cases, far more than that. In cases like, Highland Park, Michigan, and, Detroit and Flint, and, places where, they are getting, hit extra hard. So we've introduced these bills in one form or another. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Weaver. Yes, I'm going to put in the chat I'm going to flip over real quick, and there is in a form that you can send that will automatically populate who your state rep and state senator are. Some of our state reps, like in my case, and let's just say, I want to point this out, and I should put this in the comments, that the opinions expressed in Flint may not reflect those opinions of the urban news station, who has been amazing to give us a place to have these conversations. So just so you know, and you'll hear me say that a lot. In my personal opinion, not speaking for any specific org. And I say this because apparently fighting against water shutoffs and preventing folks who are disabled or poor or with kids or just trying to scrape by and survive, not having water, can be a saucy subject and political, which it should not be. So here in the chat, I'm putting a link to a petition, but a letter that gets sent and signed. In my case, I left a nice little message as well to my state senator and my state rep. We shouldn't be having these conversations in 2023 going in 2024, but they're happening. Now, it's as frustrating as that is, we have progress, which is great. So there's shutoff protections, and it's a lot like your electric protections, folks who are vulnerable, who have health conditions. So we have a lot of people who are on oxygen, and you need water for those machines, right? So like nobody should be condemned to die because they can't afford a utility bill at that. But in Michigan, we a little different. I don't claim that. But then also folks actually, there's criminal people. If folks were turning their water back on or turning a neighbor's water on without, let's say the city or municipality doing it, people were criminalized and fined. And that's just unacceptable. There's things like tenant submetering. A lot of folks, if they're behind on their water bill, they can't go get assistance because the water bill's not in their name. And that's very, very common with renters. And in Flint, because we did have 16,000 homeowners lose their homes because even if the homes were paid off, if they had an unpaid water bill, it could be attached to, their water could get shut off and all these things. But also that unpaid balance can get attached as a tax lien to their property taxes. And, say you're on a fixed income or you don't have thousands of dollars because these water bills are high, you could actually lose your home. And, the tax lien, they could take your home if you can't pay it within a certain time. It could be auctioned off. So we had 16,000 homeowners in Flint. And former Judge Val Washington has been representing these folks to try to fight. But now we're at 65%, I think is the last estimate, renters in the city of Flint. So there's a lot of renters that, do not have their water bill in their name. So if they get behind, they cannot go get assistance because the way that the programs are set up and we're working on that too, something called LIWAP, low income household water affordability assistance program. Yep. So we've been working on that as well. So coming at all these different angles because the money is there, we have enough money to pay for bombs, but yet not to make sure that our own people are taken care of. So we fight for that and to make sure that nobody's sitting there going without water, right? Like should not be a controversial thing. And then in Flint, it's a really tough place to be in because here we are fighting to keep our poison on. But there are consequences if you don't have your water on. I mean, your water gets shut off, your sewer gets shut off, your house, could get condemned if you have children and you don't have another. Good morning, Francis. Thank you so much, Fran. It's always good to see you. I pop in and I interrupt, and it could be my ADHD, because lead in the brain, heavy metals in the brain, kind of does a little different things. But going back to what I was saying, I lost my third train of thought. That's not rare. I was going to say that's rare, but it's not. Anyhow, going back to fighting for this and fighting for just the basic human dignities of being able to turn your water on. And then in Flint, we have to do the additional things like filter, then boil, depending on what pipes have exploded, because we're not investing in this country. We don't invest in our water infrastructure. It's the ostrich thing, the pipes are in the ground. I don't see it. And I'm not thinking about it until either I don't have water or it's rupturing into the street like a fountain, a very expensive one, or it's discolored. And then I'll just go ahead and blame it on the homeowner or the resident. So going back to the bill package, we want to make sure that nobody's getting shut off, nobody's going without, especially if it's going to create or worsen a health condition. I mean, again, the things I say sometimes, I'm just shocked that I hear it, come out of my mouth, and I'm like, wow, this shouldn't even be a fight. But yet we've been going to our state, House, and Senate since 2015. And that's me. That's just my experience being involved in this. The People's Water Board, Michigan Welfare Rights Organization, everything like that. And down in Detroit, they've been fighting for this for far longer, for decades. Why is this happening? I mean, we all know it's money, greed, all that stuff. But yeah, so this is good news. So we had a hearing, and I behaved myself. Just want to point that out. Even though there's some reps that had some state reps or state senators that had some questions, one of which was a senator from the UP, the Upper Peninsula, beautiful place, who had a question saying that if this affordability plan was put into place and people's water bills could not exceed 2 to 3% of their monthly income, their household income, when's the end date? When does this program end? And what's to make it to where people just don't get comfortable living in poverty? And this is these are folks who are living at 135% up to possibly 200% of the federal poverty line. And Francis says she's seeing a lot of red trucks. Yeah, there's a lot of folks getting their water shut off. The red trucks should be out there, replacing our service lines, and then of course getting the crews out there to restore a property. But unfortunately, they're out here shutting people's water off because then, you have to pay a couple months of your water bill. You have to pay, what you're behind on, and then they'll tack on fees to shut you off. They charge you to shut you off, even though you didn't ask for it. And then they charge you to turn your water back on. All this great stuff, late fees and all this. So it becomes insurmountable for so many, and in Flint for most, because again, you get a shut off notice for $1,000. And I mean, you get a shut off notice, I believe, after 60 days. Then, I mean, that's a lot, right? That's a lot of fees and a lot of just unnecessary, things. And we shouldn't have people going without food or medication or paying for their housing to keep their water on, especially in Flint. We shouldn't be shutting anybody's water off. And then also one of the things I did bring up in the hearing, just as just a side note, the fewer people who have running water in the system, the worse our water quality gets. So how stupid is that? Again, my personal opinion, but no, how stupid is that? Seriously, somebody tell me. We have a huge water quality problem, and it's not just in Flint. We have a huge water quality problem to where we have bacteria. We have Legionnaires, which is the bacterial pneumonia, breaking out every year. We don't have enough chlorine going through the system. We don't have enough water moving through, so water is sitting stagnant, and so we're shutting people off in bulk. So the fewer people that are using the water, the more it's sitting there getting stagnant, and we're losing those good treatment chemicals, and they are getting used up and degrading in the system. So then people are getting just pipe bacteria. So again, if you don't think that people's water getting shut off impacts you, think again. In 2015, when I went down to meet these amazing folks in Detroit at the International Convening of Water and Housing, I spoke up and said, hey, we live an hour away, but, thanks to the media bubble, they didn't know that Flint was going through a water quality crisis. They knew that we were dealing with shutoffs going back to all the amazing heroes that were fighting, going back to 2014 and before, against the mass shutoffs, because that's what's been happening in Detroit. Well, one of my things I warned down there in 2015, and man, I feel like I'm getting old. In 2015, was that, hey, the fewer people that are using this, especially if they're shutting blocks of people off at a time, that water is going to sit there stagnant. If it cannot move through these antiquated, huge, outdated systems, the water quality is going to get worse for everyone. Just like the hepatitis A outbreak. If you have somebody serving you food or working with you or going to be at the grocery store, they touch a cart, they've got hepatitis A. Guess what? The Clorox wipes don't work. They don't kill it. They don't kill the hepatitis A virus. So if somebody cannot wash their hands because we've chosen to, as they've said it with the Poor People's Campaign, they've waged war on the poor and not poverty. So it's, fight poverty, not the poor. But it impacts all of us. So I know we all kind of tend to walk around in our own little bubble, but if your neighbor does not have running water, it can impact your water quality. The same as if your neighbor has a service line that's still lead or galvanized steel in Flint that has not been replaced, it can impact your water. So when the mains break, because our mains are completely just destroyed, the state of Michigan switched our water and didn't treat it, and EPA didn't listen. The city at the time, in 2014 through early 2015, blew off people. So that acid water basically ate all the pipes. It didn't just eat our service lines. The service line replacement, if anybody watched last week, and you can go back to see, we had the senior lead attorney at the Natural Resources Defense Council, Sarah Tallman, on for an interview about the lawsuit, the ongoing lead service line, lead and galvanized steel service line replacement and restoration program. We're going to have more updates coming soon. And yeah, we filed, and we asked the federal judge to hold the mayor and his administration in contempt of court because they violated the judge's orders and the dates. But again, if you go back and look, and then I can put a link in the chat too that you can go back and review this. It would talk about your rights and what to expect and all that. So we're trying to tackle the Flint water crisis that is also spreading in other places as a whole. We need affordable water, right? We need to have our pipes placed. And absolutely, Dr. Weaver, we need to have not just the service lines. We need to also have the distribution mains. So basically from the water treatment plant and the pipes running that are delivering us our water in the streets. Those are the main breaks that are rupturing, causing, worsening water quality and all that. We need the service lines that connect the distribution mains to our homes. We need to make sure they are replaced. And then we need to make sure interior plumbing and appliances and fixtures. So, your water heater, your dishwasher, your washing machine, your faucets, your taps, even your spigots going to your outdoor hoses. And then the pipes in the walls need to be replaced. One of my cousins, Rhonda Kelso, love her so much. One of the things she had was her sewer line and her wall ruptured because, again, acid on metal, not a good thing, right? And so it ate through. So water coming in the house and then leaving the house, right? So those in charge like to say that, things are getting better and Flint is the most monitored water in the world. And I say this all the time. And yeah, well, there could be a 50-car pileup and we can all be staring at it, and it might be the most monitored car accident in history, but it does not change the devastation, the wrecked cars, the injured or worse folks, and, the carnage that has happened. So we can stare at this water all day long, and I can tell you, I'm no scientist. I just know a lot of them and work with a lot of them, but I'm fairly certain staring at our water is not going to make it better. What's going to make it better is replacing the water, the pipes that are delivering it to us. And also stop this messy mess of blending our water source. That'll be another episode, privatization and whatnot. And we're going to have some guests on to talk about the dangers of privatization, where you put profit over people And that's what's continuing to happen here. So that aside, back to the water affordability bills. So trying to make sure people can afford their water, so that way they can wash their hands, they can wash their dishes, they can do their laundry, they can, bathe, things like that, and make sure that they have, any of the health equipment, things like that, that depend on water, they have access to that, because nobody should die because they're poor. I don't know, or for the cheap seats. Come on now. Especially since we have stagnant wages in this country, and it's kind of hard to live on $800, $900 a month if you're on disability, and SSI and everything. It's a little difficult when all of everything else keeps going up, especially if you've got a $200 to $300 a month water bill. I mean, come on now, that's like 20-30% of your total household income. Okay, so basically we had a hearing on this, and we discussed, we had Senator Preston had asked, what as if people are going to get comfortable. And that is, to me, it's a racist dog whistle, in my opinion, my personal opinion. And it's, basically, if we give people this handout, which it's not a handout, by the way, it is not, it's just making sure people aren't going without, just like how EBT and SNAP makes sure children aren't going to bed starving, which as a human being, if you had a soul, that should be a concern. You shouldn't want that nobody, elderly, disabled, poor people down on their luck, because I mean, the statistics are everybody in America is basically one illness or accident away from going into complete poverty, losing housing, access to all of the services. So unless you're one of the billionaires who keep, trying to get us regular normies and poor folks fighting one another. It's there was a meme that I saw, and I'm probably going to misquote it, but it said, we have to stop the folks that are making $2,500 an hour from telling folks who make $20 to $25 an hour that nobody else deserves $15 an hour. It's pretty poignant. Stop letting the rich and the wealthy who are in control of things keep us fighting one another. Let's not do that. I think this is all something, and that was one of the things I said during my testimony, is, this is a human issue, not a political issue. That we should all be able to agree that nobody should go without access to clean, safe water and sanitation. One of the stories I told during this hearing was a family that I worked with, and that is 2 blocks away from me, that they are both, the husband and wife, are disabled, and their water bills were unbelievable. They were told it was going to be $2,500 to turn their water back on. And they didn't have that. They did not have that. And especially when you're on SSI, your spouse's income impacts yours. So, because, they don't want anybody getting over they don't want anybody getting in a comfortable place. And, and I just want everybody to kind of think in your mind, like, oh my God, what is, $800 a month, $1,600 a month for a family. Yikes. And that's it. And it doesn't change. It's not like you can go out and work overtime or anything like that. And most people don't have certain things to sell. So anyway, they went to try to go get assistance. They're also renters, and no, they couldn't, because the bill wasn't in their name. And we don't have a lot as for assistance yet with water bills. So they basically melted snow to flush the toilet. They collected buckets of snow, and I was there helping them. I brought the media so they could see. Like, they brought in buckets of snow, and they melted it and poured it in the back of their toilet to flush. Then there are families that were having to use buckets because their sewer got shut off, so they couldn't even flush their toilet. This is America right now, right? 2023, almost 2024. Come on now. It's ridiculous. And they shouldn't do that, because they were also physically disabled, and they're carrying heavy buckets of snow in the cold. Come on now. So I testified to that, and nobody wants to stay in that position. So it's not like somebody who is going to have an affordable water bill is going to be like, well, you know what? I myself am going to go ahead and, perfectly capable of working. I'm going to stay in poverty so I can get a lower water bill. We got to change mindset. So the link that what Dr. Weaver talked about, the link that's in the chat, please fill that out and leave a message to your state rep. And if you want to, feel free to call other state reps, especially in rural areas. These representatives and these state senators don't seem to think that their folks are having the same access and affordability issues as urban areas and even suburban areas, which is not true. There's not really a lot of help for people with wells. And right now we are fracking our state so much that people are forced to go off of their wells that are drying up or becoming contaminated and going to municipal systems, which are completely underfunded. Whole other story. Anyway, so that was good news. The good news is that we actually got a hearing on this. So we've been trying to get this. They died in committee, since 2015. That's as far as I've, been involved, and so we've tried and we actually got a hearing on it. And so we should get one with the State House here soon. And this is good news. And so the more people you can submit, comment, there's a lot of things that you can do to get involved. And you're going to hear me, push on this too, especially around, as we're coming up on voting time, important elections. But yeah, push your state reps, some of which are MIA in a lot of these situations, and others too. Don't be afraid to push others and talk to people even outside your area who are having problems and aren't sure who to go for, because that is the one amazing thing about Flint residents. We sure can teach some folks because we've been through it and we've been in the trenches and we've been fighting this for so long. And that's what makes us amazing. So, well, one of the many things that makes Flint amazing. And again, I might be partial, but hey, whatever. So super proud to have been a part of this. Super proud to be one of the co-signers on the bill. And I'm, honored to have been able to testify. Although, in my head, being the slightly sarcastic person that I am, I'm like, why we gotta testify on this? Why we got to say, hey, this is bad? One of the other stories I testified about was a 76-year-old woman who is disabled, fell and broke her back some time ago and was homeless because didn't have enough housing assistance in this city. And had to use bottled water that she can't afford and clean her wounds and herself in a bowl. And And I reached out to our mayor of Flint, the current mayor, Sheldon Neely of Flint, and so did so many others. And nothing. But hey, we move forward, right? Because apparently the big concern is Hyde and ARPA money, and then guns not being allowed at the at city council meetings. Like apparently that was a huge issue that just got made up. And so now they're trying to restrict that in City Hall building. Pretty sure that's not legal, but then they also have these emergency meetings that the mayor has called, which I think violated the Open Meetings Act because you're supposed to have more than, less than 24 hours for a notice. But there's a lot of things going on to distract from what's really needed. We're talking about capital improvement plan, which we are going to talk to Naira Sharif, who's executive director of Flint Rising, and we're going to do some education on a lot of these things and how to push back, especially on the capital improvement plan, because there's a $6 million that's set aside for 2 roundabouts in Flint, which we don't have enough traffic for that. And also, why? And you look it up and it says the average cost is between $100,000 and $250,000 for a roundabout. So apparently ours are going to be laid in gold. Anyway, so that aside, it's meant to distract us, especially the circus that is happening with our circus minus the entertainment that's happening with our city council right now, and the silencing of certain city council members. And that means when you silence a city council member, you're silencing their constituents, and that's a mess. Why, don't do that. But also you're making personal issues and all this stuff. And it's like, hey, person, this ain't about you. But all of these things are distractions to keep us looking at, oh, look at the shiny mess here. Look at the dumpster fire over there, while they're not doing what they're supposed to do, like make our water safe and clean and affordable. So there are still things moving forward and coming up soon, and we're going to talk about that. We might have to do some special educational episodes popping up. And I know I usually do Saturdays in the 11 o'clock hour. And I say that with a smile because I'd love to start at 11 o'clock, but on the dot, but I'm not exactly the most punctual. So we just won't talk about that, right? But the federal lead and copper rule, trying to make sure we have a voice. There are a lot of things where your voice and your opinion and your experience, your expertise is needed. So, oh, thank you, Dan. Dan says, I'm not in Flint, but I'm still paying attention to this. Great. Because what's happened too is that, as goes Flint, so goes the world. The same with Detroit. Like these things happen here. And if they can get away with these things here, like they have in Flint, it's going to spread elsewhere. And not just the state of Michigan, which of course, definitely the state of Michigan, because the same state agencies and governments that are, trying to sweep us under the rug and trying to force us to pay the highest rates, for water that is not safe for everybody. We'll just say that. If they can do that, it's the same agencies that are going to do it to other communities in Flint, or I mean, in Michigan. So yeah, so I appreciate you doing that and supporting us, because there are times that we do feel alone. I've been working with East Palestine, Ohio, with the train derailment, and the residents down there say there are times that they feel like they're on a poison island and they can't connect with anybody, and nobody else understands, and nobody else knows how to help. And it's true, because it's hard to know how to help, and we feel this way a lot in Flint, that we're just that those people, we don't want to talk about those poison people, and we don't want to, and we get treated like a zoo exhibit, and people stare at us and they don't know what to do. But we are humans, and our biggest fear, besides ourselves not getting fixed right, is that this is going to continue to happen to everybody's family. And we don't want somebody else to go through what we're going through, except with less support and even less attention. Because as time goes on with Flint and all of the international news and the hearings and the criminal cases that got thrown in the garbage at a tune of, I think, something around $60 million in legal fees that we've paid to defend the folks and try to prosecute the folks who did this to us. But that aside, if we don't get fixed right, nobody else is going to, because people are going to grow numb to this, and this is going to become the norm. Oh, well, there's another poison city. Oh, well, there's another poison city. And that has to stop. So I thank you very much for being here with us. And I thank you all for being here with me on Saturday. And I know, I always want to have this cheery conversation. I try to cut jokes in, but it is very serious. But I just want you to all know that we haven't been forgotten, and people do care, and we care for one another, and how they're able to continue to do this to us in Flint and other communities is because we're siloed, and they're trying to keep us separate from everybody else inside Flint and outside. So I appreciate you all being here. And hi, Rhonda, I was talking about you earlier. And my cousin Rhonda's on, and I just want to make sure that nobody feels alone. And it's very easy to feel that way, especially when Dr. Weaver and I were talking earlier about the progress we had made starting in 2015. And you just want to scream, because you're seeing these new people come in and just trash it. It's like, hey, I totally redid my house. Come check it out. And then somebody decides to move in and be like, hey, yeah, we're going to continue the great work. And they just set fire to everything. And not even in an artistic or a great way. They just burn it. And it's frustrating. And it feels like starting all over, except worse sometimes. But because, and I don't want to say the word resilient, because we are tired of being resilient. Because we have not given up, because we continue to push, it's making it more difficult for those to poison other people, and for us in Flint to be forgotten. And so that's the amazing thing. I always go back to that, because we are amazing, and we are humans, and we are not disposable people, and we're not to be thrown away. So when times get tough, don't forget that. And yeah, you want to go ahead and, scream, go get in your car, go walk into your house, walk in there and scream because it's so frustrating. Yeah, do that, because you're human. Do that. I work in mental health. So please make sure you're, getting therapy, because pretty sure we've all got a form of a trauma and stressor related condition. Let's just put it that way. And then you throw COVID in on top of it, where pretty much everybody's dealing with traumatic stressors and post-traumatic stress disorder in one way or another. We're human, and that happens. And our brains, they got to figure out how to work on this. And so do our souls. But you know what we can do? We can be proud of the fact that we still have one. We're in here today talking to one another and supporting one another and talking back. When people say things like, well, if we cut people's water bills and they can afford it, what's to make it to where they want to get off of this program? Nobody's like, yo, I'm poor and I can't afford water and I want to stay that way. Woohoo! Because I'm getting a discount on my water bill. And luckily, I'll tell you what, there are representatives that absolutely bit back and said exactly that. Like people who are getting it, maybe, their water bills being affordable. They're not going to say, yes, I'm getting a discount on my water bill. I'm going to stay in a state where I can't afford anything else. That's dehumanizing. And it just shows that we don't have the right people in office representing us. That's just, the nice thing is that we can vote, right? We can, argue these things on a community level, and then we can get them out of office, because that's not that outdated, that outdated point of view does not represent where we're at, and it never should, right? Like, oh my goodness, people have an affordable water bill. That means they're going to want to stay poor because it's so much fun. But now they can bathe and have something to drink, whatever. So anyway, that's the good news there. And so in the chat, if you want to scroll up, there is a link there. Again, go to that and go to that link and you put your information out, you put your address in, they'll pull up your state senator and state rep, and we'll send them this letter saying, support these bill packages. The water is a human right bill package, shut off protection, tenant, decriminalization of water hookups. Like, seriously, if somebody's going without water and you turn the water back on, how in the world is that a crime? But if you're treating water as a commodity, people die. And because it should be a human right. Also, like, it's the whole thing of like, who owns the Great Lakes? Come on now. You didn't go put that out there. You can put that water in there. But hey, going back to that profit over people mentality. So yes, we do need to fund it. And yes, the money is there. It's not going to be just starving these water municipalities and stuff. But we're also working on, the infrastructure bill on a federal level, the Build Back Better plan. And that's why the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds, should be going to fund clean, safe, and affordable water instead of, roundabouts and whatever else, lawnmowers and whatever other mess that, that's being tossed out there. But yeah, so we absolutely, I just want to say, I'm actually quoting this from an article about our hearing on Thursday with the Senate. It's basically, so money for the fund to help with the water affordability plan, it would come as a $2 to $2 monthly fee added to water bills. And then also the fund would accept private donations, which is amazing. That's, wonderful. But then we have, Representative Preston, a Republican from Cedar River, said, what really concerns me about this, because there's no expectation of self-reliance, is that this is just another entitlement that is ultimately be borne by all the ratepayers who are paying their bills in these jurisdictions. Okay. So this is where, I remind you that these are my personal opinions, and then I bite my tongue because this ain't that kind of show. But if you know me, you know what I'm thinking. And what I said actually during the hearing, I had to mute myself and turn my camera off because I was on Zoom at the time because I was work. And so thankfully, Representative Ayash from Hamtramck said that he said it's doubtful that them being able to get a discount for their water bill is going to be the reason they'd want to live in poverty for the rest of their lives. Common sense, right? Should be. Yes. So, I know water is not an entitlement, right? Right. I mean, and the reason, the United Nations declared water as a human right a long time ago. And I get it. We ignore the United Nations, but they're saying this because there are third world countries that don't have running water at all. They don't have access to it. So we need to focus on helping them. But then now it's rolled into the United States with these barbaric water shutoffs. And, the city of Detroit has been fighting this. They actually had a representative that said, well, people are going out and buying these big screen TVs and these tennis shoes, which is another racist dog whistle. And they're blowing all this money. And so if they don't want to pay their water bill, they can have their water shut off and they can just go get a bucket and go to the Detroit River and get it that way. Yep. So, that soulless human has since been, Maureen Taylor. I don't know if you ever want to Google her, from Detroit, Michigan Welfare Rights Organization. When she rips you up and down, your soul's going to be scarred and you deserve it. So if you make her mad, one of my absolute heroes looking up to Mama Maureen is something. She's a tiny little woman, but fierce. And she let this woman have it, who had said, take a bucket and go to the Detroit River. But again, when people ask me what justice looks like for the criminal cases, My thing is, yeah, jail, of course, but I know that they're overcrowded and everything. So then when they get out of jail, they should be forced to live in Flint with no filters. They don't get a service line replacement. They can be on a little neighborhood just all to themselves, but they should, yeah, have to live in Flint and see what they did. Anyhow, um, oh, Flint was crappy when you're 24 and you're 40, 24. Well, it's because in this country we put profit over people. We don't invest. I mean, when General Motors was allowed to bail and not take care of the people or the small businesses or the city that had helped build them, yeah, we put profit first. And that's what we continue to do as as a country and government. And what do you think that leaves? And then you have former Governor Snyder coming in and cutting revenue sharing for these post-industrial cities. And I can go on a roll about how it has been a constant gentrification and going on from there. So you strip the resources and you put the tax money to tax breaks for the wealthy, and you don't invest in cities who need and deserve to be invested in to keep them going after you've taken away their revenue sharing. And then you have former Governor Snyder's emergency manager laws come in that privatize everything, and they, strip a city of their you strip them of their revenue, their public assets and their revenue. You sell off their farmers market, and you sell off their their even their football field, their stadiums, things like that. And then you take away you privatize their garbage pickup, all of these things. When you strip a community of public assets, it pushes people out. So then you're looking at gentrification. So you're going to have fewer taxpayers in the city, and you're going to have an oversized water system like we do. And then you're going to have less services. You're going to see them doing what they're doing now, closing our schools, consolidating our courts. They want our tax base, but they don't want to take care of said tax base. And so they can push us out and then focus on laying new bricks downtown Flint and then messing it up, putting the wrong sand, but making it look good, putting the facade up down there, but yet not knowing that you're realizing or caring that you're closing small businesses down there because of the ongoing construction. But also, how are you supposed to cook good food when you don't have safe water? Not worrying about replacing the pipes. So coffee and, soups and sandwiches and all this stuff. So these small businesses have had to go out of their way to get these really expensive filtration systems to try to protect their customers and their employees. So that's a whole long story, and that's what happened. So yeah, and that's the thing is, and then they put us on to say they say it's to save money, but it was never to save money. It was to move us to a more privatized, profitable, less a more regionalized, a privatized system to where they didn't have to. There was more gray area with federal safety regulations, which are outdated as they are, but they can move away from it. And then you don't have, when it's not run by a municipality or voters, you don't have as much of a voice or a recourse when they poison you. So they, came up with, with the Flint being broke there, we actually had to foot the bill, 300 and some million or more for a privatized pipeline we didn't want or need, but that would sell untreated water to General Motors and all these other corporations who did not want to spend the money, because you know how poor these giant corporations are, to remove the treatment chemicals. They never updated our water treatment plant like they should have. And yeah, because sending clean, safe water and affordable water to the residents of Flint was never a priority. It was to privatize, push the poor, Black and brown, all of the rest of us undesirables out, and then gentrify it and turn us into a cute little like Ann Arbor type place where you can go shopping and go to school and stuff, unless they continue to defund our schools. But not to actually live here. So that's what this has happened. And yeah, this has not been a short-term thing. They have been disinvesting in Flint for decades, same as Detroit. So they, pushed Detroit into bankruptcy, and so they could be under state and private control for ever, and under state receivership for 30 years. Flint was on the way to doing that. They were doing the exact same thing to Flint. But when we busted out internationally, when our former mayor, Dr. Karen Weaver, declared a state of emergency in December of 2015, the whole world stopped and was like, what is going on here? What is going on here? and hit the brakes. So then people started paying attention. They started looking at this emergency manager law and the impacts of it, and how it's based in racism and corporate greed, and how they were, pushing us out. So we actually were able to put the brakes on our their goal of bankrupting and privatizing us, letting some, these corporations come in and have Flint, but at a cheap rate. So and that's the thing, is that we were able to throw a stick in their spokes, right? And that's good, and it's amazing, because it doesn't happen, right? That doesn't, it's so rare. But what we have done in Flint is to remind the world and residents in this country that you can speak up, and you can make a difference, and you can ruin their plans. I mean, they ruined our plans of living, happy lives, and they violated our constitutional yeah. Hi, Misty. Look, I'm supportive and everything, but Flint's my city, so I'm gonna have to ask you to not call Flint that, because if Flint was crap, they would not have been, and still are, focused so hard on stealing our assets, right? If we weren't nothing, they would not be focusing so hard to dismiss us. And because of the work in Flint, Hamtramck is getting their mains and everything replaced. So, but I mean, well, and I mean, you could say you lived in the bad part, but actually, when you start stripping away, Flint, again, history, we formed the middle class. Flint was where there were jobs. Flint was where, GM, Buick, all this stuff, they got their launch, was the hard work and the community of Flint. And, when they didn't want to pay their people, they didn't want to pay, they obviously don't want to pay taxes. They also had been fined $34 million, I believe it was, for contaminating the Flint River. They didn't want to pay for fixing that, so they went ahead and filed bankruptcy and then transferred it over, pulled all these corporate things, these corporate moves that you and I couldn't do as an individual, which then, if you take away jobs, you take away support services, you take away education, jobs, after-school programs, you poison the water, you destroy the health, you get rid of healthcare, you get rid of supportive services that all these other communities have, then what's left? Then they turn a once bustling, hub of middle-class America into a poverty-stricken, falling apart place where people don't have the resources they need to survive and to better themselves. So then you see crime going up, because instead of supporting humans, we're going to throw the poor people and the black and brown people, we're going to criminalize them and throw them in jail. We're not going to get them the help they need. We're not going to get them jobs. So they're going to do what they need to survive. Then we're going to close their schools. How are they going to learn? How are they going to get out? How are they going to pull themselves out of poverty? So this is, you had a hard time finding work. And and that's the thing, is that that's what they're doing. They're cutting off all of the life supports that if you go outside and look at these white suburban areas, they got it, and they're like, okay, well, but they're not better than us. The thing is this was done to us because we had so much, because we had so many assets. So they strangled us. They, they tried to bankrupt us and run people out. And even in our, seemingly darkest hours and in the positions that we're in, we're still setting examples. We're still saying, you took all this from us. You poisoned us. You changed our lives, our bodies, our futures. We have people that are dead because of what you did to us. And we're still fighting. We're still fighting to rebuild Flint the way we need it, not the way that wealthy folks or corporations need it, with the supports that we need to get better, because the only people that know what we need to recover is us. And these folks continue to try to make decisions about us without us. And that's what got us here in the first place. So again, all of these people that were elected, or just, even take that out of it, because former Governor Snyder's emergency manager law stripped democracy of Flint, Inkster, Detroit schools, Benton Harbor and their parks. traditionally, majority, like I think it was 89% of all majority minority cities in Michigan were under this emergency manager law, where former Governor Snyder appointed an unelected official to suspend democracy in that community or that, school system, and then just privatize it, pull out everything. They could even break union contracts, but the only thing they couldn't do was skip a bond payment to Wall Street. So that being said, the impacts of this extremely racist law and this way to gentrify, so that way the rich can get wealthier and everything like that, off the backs of the poor. We've been fighting, and there's been lawsuits to fight to get this overturned. And those elected officials who did steal our democracy, and those who right now in the mayor and the city administration, in my personal opinion, are working to get the state to come back in and take control, need to be stopped and can be stopped. Recalls, voting. Actually, absolutely. And a lot of people, when you think of voting, you think of the presidential elections. And yeah, that's important. But policy is born locally. All right. Going down to your school board, looking at your local, city council, your state reps, your state senate. All of these things are extremely important. And they make laws that absolutely directly, specifically impact you. So, yeah, and that's, so yes, you went to you thought it was weird Flint Township was a wealthy neighborhood, and even though it was hard to find work, yeah, because it spreads. That's the thing. People who are on just the outskirts of Flint think that this can't happen to them, but it already is. I mean, look at Flushing. Like, every time our outdated wastewater treatment plant floods and sewer gets pumped into the Flint River, that's going those folks' wells, their drinking water, their soil, their basements, all that stuff. It is never just contained. It might start contained in one city, but it's never just contained there. So going back to our earlier conversations about people who don't have water and sanitation, can't wash their hands, the hepatitis outbreak that's been ongoing in southeastern Michigan because we do shut people's water off because they can't afford their bills. And I'm not talking about people who are like, I'm not paying it because I'm not. That I don't know anybody who's doing that. It's like, I'd rather go get this TV than pay for running water. I mean, we might think it because I don't really want to pay for my poison, but I have to, and I know I have to. So, we do. It's just extremely important and difficult for people. Plus, we do have to pay for bottled water. And then there's that conflict that I don't want to make a corporation rich because the people in charge refuse to make my water safe and clean. And I pay the highest rates in the United States for what's coming out of my tap, and I just want it to be safe. So absolutely. So we need to vote. Looking at your drain commissioner, a lot of folks don't know how powerful your county drain commissioner is. Ours absolutely is. Had a big old hand in, the Carigandi Water Authority and moving Flint away from Detroit and, all this great stuff. So we need to look at those local offices. We need people, regular people like you, running for office because we know what we need. We know what we need to survive, to recover, and to live happily and safely in our own homes. And that's why it's important. And your voice matters, your opinion matters, your life experience matters. And if you look at some of these folks, and again, I don't know this representative Preston from the UP. I don't know him. But when there are statements such as, because there's no expectations of self-reliance, is that this is another entitlement that ultimately will be borne up by all the ratepayers who are paying the bills in these jurisdictions. It's basically what they did in Flint, saying, hey, well, your water bill is more expensive because your neighbor's not paying their bill. Oh, no. Because these people have not, these elected officials have not invested in our water system. Well, I think it was like 60 or 65%. I think, Rhonda, they were saying that our 60 to 65% of our treated water is exploding into mains and gushing out into the street. That's why our bills are so expensive. That is why our bills are so expensive. And, that's treated water that we pay for, right? So, and it's just being gushed into the street. No, it's not my poor neighbor who has to boil snow to flush the toilet. It's not their fault my water bills are this high. It's because of greed, privatization, and people getting away with it. So how do we stop that? Voting. Absolutely. Voting, reaching out to your state reps. And yes, absolutely, Misty. I love that so much. We the people are those people that can uprise and change the world. We need to make the world in our version of it, which is nobody's going without. Nobody is suffering going without clean, safe, affordable water, and nobody's going without food, housing. There's no reason we should have these empty homes and still have such a huge housing crisis, and that we should have this homeless population. We shouldn't have veterans. You want to spend all this money on, the military and bombing people and all this stuff and turning them into poverty-stricken, piles of rubble. How about you invest in our military that you love so much, but actually the people in the military, not the warmongering. Again, my personal opinion. But we take care of our veterans who did serve and who did fight. Even if you don't agree with war, which I personally don't, because I would like my tax money to go towards education, healthcare, making sure nobody's sleeping on the streets, making sure no child goes hungry, and no senior citizen goes without medication. No disabled person has to fill up bowls of snow and melt it on a stove to flush a toilet. Okay. So, I know that's like completely radical ways of thinking, but nobody should be suffering because we also don't invest in our people. So, okay, I'll get off of that post right there and go back to, so looking at the screen, looking at the water affordability bill summaries. And if you look, and I'm gonna see if I can pin the comment, let me see. Nope, it says block user and the user was me. But if you scroll up in the comments, you should be able to see, and let's see if I can put it on here again. This is a letter that you can sign that supports these bill packages, and you can see the information from the bill package on the screen, but also you can look at what they're talking about with, decriminalizing hookups if somebody's going without water, because we got to save one another, and then making sure that people aren't going without, and when you fill this out, it'll populate with your state rep, and you can go call everybody in the state senate and state house. The article that I was quoting, it was from Michigan Radio, and I will put that in the comments as well. But before we leave, because I try not to take up too much of your Saturday, because if anybody knows me, I can go on and on and on about this, because this is my, one of my passions, and I talk a lot. No, David, I thank you. Since I'm here, no, I'm not. I'm just a very, very irritated and angry human that does not want to see other humans suffering. So. Oh, wonderful. Misty, that's amazing. Yes, Misty says, I am in with my local state rep and we'll get her on board. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's heroic, David. All of us who get up in the morning, survive our best and do, live our best lives and look out for one another and push, y'all are heroes. That's the thing. And you need to know this. You need to know that your voice matters. Nobody's voice is too quiet, too small, too unimportant. Absolutely not. So they need to hear from us. Otherwise, they're just going to do whatever their donors want them to do or whatever, because but if we tell them what they need to do, and if they don't do what's right for the people, we vote them out. We run for office and take over. And I say we minus me, because I'm fairly certain I wouldn't last. but the rest of y'all, get in there. All right. Get in there and do what's right and push your elected officials to do what's right, which means stop punishing people because they're poor and taking away their water. We're in Michigan, the Great Lakes state, where, I think it's like 20% of the world's fresh water is right here, or it could be more. I am not sure anymore. Anyway, so this is something that I've learned in the past, 9.5 years of the ongoing Flint water crisis, is that we can make change, good or bad. And if we sit back and let it happen, it just makes the fight harder. Now, I do want to put this up. Anybody who is in line to get a water shutoff, anybody that is running into water affordability problems, which, is actually a huge problem in the state of Michigan, again, the Great Lakes state, there is the RAT program, and you can apply. And I'm going to put up, because we do have water assistance programs in Flint, and I'm going to put this up. City of Flint it tends to be outdated, but all right, we'll put that up. I'm going to put that in the chat, and so you can look into this. But the RAT program is run by the Water Assistance Program the Water Residential Assistance Program. And what that is, the RAP program is a way to get water bill credits, part of your arrearages paid, and also money towards plumbing. And what that is you're able to, get assistance. And this is something, if you call Wayne Metro, that's for Southeastern Michigan, and it'll show you the different RAP communities. So yeah, there's Wayne, Monroe, and Washtenaw RAP communities, as well as Macomb, Lapeer, and St. Clair counties, Oakland County, Genesee County, which is, Flint. And this website will tell you what you need to do to get onto the program, and they'll give you a water bill credit and everything. And the biggest thing is to try to avoid getting your water shut off, but then also to get assistance if you have, because a lot of problems are old plumbing. And if you've had the acid water of Flint, you might have water leaks in your home. You don't know. But yeah, so to make sure that that's in there. So I'm going to leave you with the information I'm putting in the chat, and it's saying there's issues with connecting, because why not, right? Why not have internet issues? But yeah, so to push this program as a way of assistance, but then overall to make it to where these programs hopefully won't be needed, to where your water bill will be affordable, and you won't have to worry about losing your home, or worse, if your water is shut off or becomes so unaffordable it gets put on your bill. So you can see the grid there. Please, please, please. Again, wrapping back up, good things happened that oh, thank you, Misty. Good things can happen. All right. When we stand up and when we fight, when we stand together. I thank you guys for listening and for sharing. Please share this out, for updates again on to get the assistance with RAP, and the links are in the chat. And then also this is for the whole state of Michigan as well. The water affordability package, and water is a human right. Like, just getting that declared and saying nobody should go without, especially if they can't afford it. So we got to look out for one another. And I want to thank you guys. I've gone over an hour here because, it's me chit-chatting and everything. Happy to see new faces in. Thank you so much. Please share. I do my best to be on every Saturday and in the 11 o'clock hour. And so this is what's happening in Flint. That's me. And up in that corner, one of these days, I'll tell you all that story of the picture that was 2015 or now, where basically, I'll tell you the story now. 2015, the city of Flint and state of Michigan were telling us that the water was safe and fine, and the people of Flint can, quote unquote, relax. There's no widespread lead problem. And again, in Flint, lead is not the only or the most dangerous contaminant in our water, but it is the most regulated contaminant. We have disinfection, carcinogens, cancer-causing disinfection byproducts, as well as bacteria and other heavy metals and other things that come with a collapsing, corroded, unstable infrastructure. That's another show as well. But yeah, we are on the my personal Facebook, the What Are You Fighting For Facebook page, as well as in the Urban News Station group. So if you look for the group Urban News Station, you can join in, because I'm not the only show that's giving you information about what's happening in Flint, in the state of Michigan, and across the nation, because we no matter where you live, we're all in this together. And and in 2015, they said the water was safe and fine, and we were holding a press conference at City Hall where we were giving the new Natasha Henderson. She was a emergency manager light that was appointed by former Governor Snyder and the former Mayor Dane Walling at that time, a petition where in about 24 hours, we had 26,000 signatures for people around the country to help us to say, get us off the Flint River at that time and get us back to Detroit, which of course that was part one. We need to also replace all of the damaged infrastructure. We're not there yet. But what was funny, and the media who had shown up was asking me if I had arranged this. But that guy pulling the cart happened to pull up right when we were getting ready to do our press conference. And the press conference where they were saying our water was fine. The state was saying their water was fine. So, but we're also still in that same place in a lot of ways. They're saying our water's fine, drink up, but yet no, we're still, the pipes are still in the ground, and we still need to filter them, boil, all that great stuff. So again, Thank you all for being here with me. I appreciate you so much. Yep, every Saturday, unless something happens, we go live in the meantime. In the 11, I always say in the 11 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. ish, because I have a tendency to not be on time, ADHD, and new things popping up, and it just, I'm human. So there we go. But I thank you all for being with me. And if you hear of news, please reach out to me on my personal Facebook, or give me a post or whatever, or through What Are You Fighting For? And keep us updated. But also, please share this out. Please share the resources and look out for one another, because as long as we stand together, we are going to make a change and a difference. And we have that power. We've done it. We've done it. Okay. So we've made these changes, and yes, they fight back, but man, again, I love being the thorn in the side, and I love having you all with me. And again, thank you so much, so much for being here with me on your Saturday. I hope I see some sun coming out for maybe a moment. So hopefully the rest of your weekend is wonderful. And no matter what, be safe out there and take care of one another. And I will see you again next Saturday in the 11 o'clock hour, either on my Facebook, What Are You Fighting For's page, or in Urban News Station. You can subscribe to get updates there and see all the other amazing shows. And until then, have a wonderful weekend. And thank you all so much for being here with me. Have a great weekend. Bye.